And now we go to Louisiana, and that is where the man accused of shooting and killing former NFL player Joe McKnight is arrested, at least now, for manslaughter. The charges, they come nearly a week after the apparent road rage incident, and the sheriff, he's defending the delay and his department's decision to initially release the man without charging him for anything. 4 days after this man admitted to shooting former NFL running back Joe McKnight, an arrest for manslaughter.
First, let me say to the McKnight family, thank you for your patience.
The sheriff, on the defense, first thanked the McKnight family, then addressed the angry community members.
Justice!
Who were outraged. Ronald Gasser was originally released with no charges filed.
Tough. I don't care.
The sheriff even read a profanity-laced message from one critic.
All we know is that you are a puppet. Shame on you. It's completely and totally uncalled for. We started Thursday afternoon with a witness who lied.
We are told investigators then talked to more than 70 business owners to recover surveillance video, including this one showing two cars matching the description of the ones involved, and also conducting more than 160 interviews before concluding both drivers cut each other off, drove erratically, and traveled almost 6 miles to this traffic light.
At some point, Mr. McKnight exits his car and goes to Mr. Gasser's car.
That's where authorities say a verbal argument ended with Gasser firing 3 shots from inside of his car.
I'm ecstatic over the arrest. I'm glad it happened.
They're not going to settle for anything less than justice.
Now, the sheriff also said that Gasser wasn't originally arrested because Louisiana has, yes, wait for it, strong stand-your-ground self-defense, which are justifiable homicide laws, and they vary state to state. Okay, let me first get to the arrest or the non-arrest. I don't know. Gasser, he stayed at the scene of the crime. He didn't debate that he shot the guy. Why wouldn't, when there was no gun on McKnight or anything else, regardless of the stand-your-ground defense, why wouldn't there automatically be an arrest on that side? I've never heard of such a thing.
Well, again...
Have you ever?
Yeah, I have, and I'll tell you that a lot of times, if you have a witness who lied, first of all, then that is something that the police should consider, because you need to...
One moment, Mayo. Just so we're clear, the guy on the screen that the audience is looking at, he told the officers that he shot McKnight 3 times and he killed him. My point is, yes, maybe throughout the course of a trial we'll find out that it was justifiable or not. But why not on the scene when the shooter acknowledges he shot and killed somebody? Don't you do at minimum an arrest?
Every shooting does not require an arrest, and if this is correct, that they followed each other and went back and forth for 6 miles, lots of things are critical. Who's the pursuer? Who's trying to get away? If anyone's trying to get away, you know, the fact that, well, the suggestion that Mr. McKnight got out of the car and went toward this man, those are all things that the police should consider.
Absolutely.
When it's time to determine whether you're going to make an arrest.
But my question, Doug, is it at the immediacy after a fatal crime, okay, or a fatal incident, isn't that the time when you want to bring the person in for questioning while the information's fresh? Sure, maybe an eyewitness lied. I'm not debating it did or didn't happen. But shouldn't at that point be the most critical window of time to try and get the most salient information?
Your question suggests the answer. As soon as you place somebody under arrest, they have certain rights that they don't have when they're not arrested. And if this man is making voluntary statements, if he agrees, you know what, I want to tell you about my story, he can do that. As soon as he's arrested, he has a right to counsel, certain things attached. Everything changes once he's under arrest. And that's probably a practical reason for that.
You kick the guy?
So if McKnight shot him, would the same thing have occurred? Look, they don't need to arrest him right away, but on this one, I agree with you. And I agree with you as well. So you go, you investigate, hey fella, what happened? Let him tell you what happened, and you put the cuffs on. He just admitted shooting an unarmed man 3 times, and you know, this is a situation where I think an immediate arrest was in order, but I have to say, you know, the notion of investigating first and then arresting when the circumstances are not clear-cut is a good thing. It just doesn't happen often enough. In a situation like this, you get to the scene of a crime, and there's a man with a gun who says, I just shot this guy 3 times because he pissed me off and walked over to my car, I agree with you.
Now, what happens a lot of times is that a lot of departments will take you into custody. They won't charge you, okay, but you'll be in custody, and they'll claim that you're in custody for questioning. They'll give you food and all of this, and maybe you won't even have handcuffs on, so it'll be debatable about whether you're free to leave. At that point, good detectives try to get as much information, to Doug's point, as possible, because you can build your case.
But at least
Without
you put them
that
in custody.
information,
You don't send them home on their way after they just killed a guy in broad daylight.
and I think that basically you definitely have to look at all of that. It is irregular that you would go home that quickly.
How about
Normally
on the
you'd go to
subject of
police
irregular? You know, the chief there almost seems straight out of Dukes of Hazzard, right? Screaming at the media. I don't know who he's screaming at. You have a dead person. Clearly, they got bad information. Not their fault, okay? Bad witnesses or whatever. But he's acting like he's the aggrieved party here. You've got somebody dead, and they clearly didn't conduct the investigation the right way, initially at least. And you have a chief screaming, and by the way, this was carried live, and people had to dump out of it because all of a sudden he's yelling obscenities, reading some of the social media comments he got. That's not in the cop playbook, is it?
Well, it seems like these days it's very popular to be upset with the media. And I think that's kind of floating around in the ether right now.
I don't like that, by the way.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
well,
yes.
no, you did such a good job. But I mean, I think what you saw is unusual, and I would say it's probably not the most professional thing.
Finally, speaking of unusual, or maybe not, but not necessarily the best thing, stand your ground. Because, listen, we talked about it ad nauseum, guys, with obviously what happened to Trayvon Martin in Florida in the ZIMERMAN case. But, again, if somebody believes, first of all, the idea of carrying guns in cars and all the rest, I know it's a losing battle, so I'm not even going to have it, but I don't think it's necessarily in the best interest of public safety, but okay. But the idea that somebody could think it's fine and legal to shoot somebody because you have a traffic argument with them, and somehow, some way that could be construed, and maybe it even will be a trial, that's justifiable because you perceived a threat. Can we agree this is crazy?
Well, I think, again, but if you even go back to the officer that we just spoke about, look, he said, I was scared. So we're in an age where all you have to do if you want to kill someone is claim you're afraid. Get them in a position where there are not a lot of witnesses, and you have a shot at it.
Our law is a good law. It really is, because it takes into account the subjective and the objective. Here, in order to claim self-defense, you have to subjectively truly believe that you are in fear of your life, and that belief needs to be reasonable. It's a really good standard, as opposed to stand your ground and I was scared.
And by the way, I'm sure a jury pool might look at it differently if it was a football player that shot a guy that was of a different size who came to his window than vice versa. And just think about that when it comes to the rule of law. Well, it depends how big the guy is or how scary he looks as to whether or not I should or shouldn't kill him. You know?
And it has nothing to do with their conduct.
Well, Rich, you're going to hear a trial where somebody's going to say a professional football player who used to tackle people for a living at high speeds was rushing up to my car at full speed, yelling obscenities, and he was going to kill me, he's going to kill me. I was strapped in, I had my seatbelt. The only thing I could do was shoot to save him.
But apparently
you're going to hear that trial.
By all accounts, Mr. Glasser is not some innocent bystander in this. He also cut off and they had a long exchange. But, as we said, we will find out at trial. All right, coming up next, you may have seen this story in the Times. A look at race in the criminal justice system. Not only are minorities incarcerated, obviously, at disproportionately higher rates than whites, as you've heard here, but once they're behind bars, according to this report, it only gets worse.